Video games wasted my whole life, and today I am an unemployed failure. The average gamer spends over 650 hours per year playing video games. That's more time than most people spend exercising, reading, and learning new skills combined. So about 2 years ago, I posted this video on my channel about how I quit playing video games forever and essentially encouraging other people to do the same. And it quickly became one of my more controversial videos, I guess, and had loads of comments ranging everywhere from, this video changed my life and I'm finally gonna quit playing games and do something more meaningful with my time, all the way to, stop trying to clickbait children into giving you money. The reactions to this topic were so interesting that I couldn't help but read through every single comment. And as I was doing so, I realized something. The people defending gaming the hardest were, in their own words, proving exactly why it's a problem. But before we get into the deeper psychology behind all of this, let me tell you a bit about what I accomplished during my casual gaming career. Lego Star Wars maxed out all the levels, collected all the red bricks, Pokemon, beat the Elite Four countless times, Mario Kart Gold on all the tracks, unlocked all the characters, Halo Reach, Mythic rank, unlocked loads of fancy armor, Call of Duty, Prestige Master year after year, quick scoping expert, Skyrim, unlocked all the skill trees, max level character, FIFA Ultimate Team with all the best players, GTA, accumulated loads of money and fancy cars, Super Smash Bros, learned all the combos so I could beat my friends, Fortnite or Warzone victory screens, the list goes on. If you've ever progressed in any of these games, or maybe some other ones that I didn't mention here, ask yourself this question. What did any of that do for me in real life? The answer is nothing. For the longest time, I tried to convince myself that those 10 to 15 years that I spent playing all of these games wasn't a complete waste of time. But I think the hard truth that I've only recently started to accept is that it actually was a waste of time. After turning off the console or putting the controller away, my life was exactly the same. All of the hours I dedicated to progressing in those games, the achievements that I unlocked within them, didn't matter at all in the real world. They were just pixels on a screen. The moderation myth. So the most common pushback that I got on this previous video was something along the lines of hobbies and pastimes are okay. Only time you have to worry is when something becomes an addiction. Most things in life should be consumed in moderation. Balance is the key to happiness. Everything in moderation, this is a common thing, not just in this context of gaming and stuff, but just in life, this idea that, well, somehow everything should be in this perfect, balanced equilibrium. Don't really think that's the case, but that's a topic for another video. But then I saw a reply that sort of countered this argument. Everyone always says moderation when so few have the discipline for moderation. 90% of people will overdo it. But I think this response doesn't even hit on the full issue here. When someone says, everything in moderation, they're already assuming that gaming deserves a place in your daily routine. The term moderation is deliberately vague. It could mean anything from 1 hour per week to 20 hours, depending on who you ask. But here's the thing, these games are deliberately engineered by giant teams with billion-dollar budgets to make sure that every mechanic is designed to make just one more game feel irresistible. So I think that telling yourself that you're gonna live this, ideal balanced life of moderation for anything that's designed specifically to be addictive, like gaming, gambling, social media, drugs, alcohol, just isn't gonna work very well. So instead of asking yourself, how much time should I spend gaming? Ask yourself, why should gaming be a part of my life at all? Think about it this way. Your default relationship with something like gambling right now might be 0. Hopefully it is if you watch my videos, but you're not sitting there thinking, okay, well, I should moderate my gambling to just an hour a day or maybe, once a week. Maybe you'll hit a casino once in a while with some friends on a trip, but you're not like scheduling regular gambling into your weekly routine and saying that you live this nice, balanced, moderate lifestyle with gambling. I would take the exact same approach with gaming. Start with this baseline of 0. Maybe there's a special occasion, friends visiting, maybe family game night, that's fine, but it really shouldn't be a part of your weekly routine any more than going to a casino should be. Okay, you're probably thinking, okay, Miles, let's be serious. Gaming's not as bad as gambling. You're not gonna game away your life savings like you could at a casino. Well, I would like to push back a little bit on that. I think there is an argument for gaming being just as bad, but in different ways that are more subtle and potentially more dangerous because they are kind of subconscious. They're still ingrained into us, and you can tell this by the reactions to my previous video of people getting upset about the idea of giving up gaming. But let me explain a little bit deeper. Gaming hijacks your natural drive for growth and convinces you that virtual progress counts as real progress. So while I was grinding for that XP, levels, ranks, achievements, coins, whatever it was, I was wasting that natural drive on these games and leaving none for my real life. When we repeatedly spike our dopamine with these artificial rewards and overstimulation, our baseline dopamine drops. This means that everything else starts to feel boring by comparison. So if people are spending an average of over 650 hours per year playing video games, and I'm sure you know a few people who are spending more than that much time per year on gaming, then it makes sense why people don't spend nearly as much time exercising, reading, learning new skills, or developing themselves or their career. So because of this dopamine hijacking, those hours that you spent gaming don't just disappear, but they actively make you less motivated to pursue anything else outside of those hours you spent gaming. And this is exactly why I've been working on something called purposeful productivity. It's a complete system for taking that energy that you might be devoting to things like gaming and redirecting it towards building your own personal life operating system. If you want to learn more about that, there's a link in the description. The relaxation lie. So the second most common defense was that gaming helps with stress relief. And I definitely used to believe this too. It's what I used to tell my parents growing up, that, oh, I needed to, relax after a long day of school or work by playing some video games. Here's what I learned. Gaming isn't relaxing. It's a highly stimulating activity disguised as recovery. Real relaxation involves lowering your nervous system activation. Things like reading a book, taking a walk, having a conversation, meditation. Gaming floods your brain with flashing lights and rapid visual stimulation, constant decision-making, variable reward schedules, social pressure and competition, adrenaline spikes, the list goes on. This isn't relaxation. This is artificial stimulation that's making you temporarily feel better by spiking your dopamine, but then is actually making real recovery activities feel boring in comparison. Think about it these days. Most of these games aren't really relaxing at all. I mean, you can make an argument for things that are more story-based, single-player games, potentially, but those still have a lot of the addictive characteristics about them. But a lot of the other ones are, super high adrenaline, things flashing all over the screen, competition, being yelled at by teammates. That's not really relaxation. I know for me, after I quit gaming, simple pleasures became way more enjoyable again. Conversations felt more engaging, books became interesting, simple walks in nature felt energizing instead of boring. And this is really what happens when you start to reset that dopamine baseline. The real world becomes enjoyable again. The opportunity cost. Now, the third defense that I often hear for video games is basically like, well, my life is fine. I'm 30 years old, married, financially stable, happy, healthy, living a balanced life. I play video games. I've been a lifelong gamer and, I enjoy it. I'm satisfied with my life. Now, I'm definitely not trying to uproot anyone's satisfaction with their life. If you're genuinely happy with your situation, that's great. I'm happy for you. Keep doing your thing and living your life. But for me personally, I know I used to justify my gaming habits in the same way. I had decent grades in school, social relationships. I wasn't like a complete mess. My life was decent, nothing to complain about. And so I was like, oh yeah, well, gaming is a part of that. My life is fine. Cool, we're fine. But here's what this argument misses. You've achieved some level of success or general life satisfaction despite gaming, not because of gaming. And I've observed a lot of people who use gaming or social media or alcohol, drugs, gambling as a way to create this artificial satisfaction with their life and convincing themselves that their life is fine, they've fulfilled their potential, they're happy with how things are, and they almost take pride in that satisfaction, when in reality, if you just remove gaming from their life, then all of a sudden, other parts of their life aren't so great anymore. There's these other problems that they're sort of hiding away from and using gaming as a form of escape or to numb that pain. Gaming makes you content with a life that is good enough. It rewires your brain to prefer easy rewards over meaningful challenges. You become satisfied with a comfortable life instead of an extraordinary one. But back when I used to play video games, I don't know exactly how many hours I averaged. I just know it was a lot less than most of my friends, but it was still at least a few hours a day. So what's that, like 20 plus hours a week? And that's not counting the time that I spent, still thinking about those games or watching gaming content or talking with people about games. And I was definitely spending way more time trying to progress in the virtual world than in the real world. Those 600 plus, or in some cases 1,000 hours per year that people spend gaming could have been invested in building deeper relationships, developing career skills, which could lead to promotions and just higher income, learning instruments, language, creative abilities, starting businesses or side projects, improving your physical or mental health, traveling and experiencing the actual world. But the key here is that opportunity cost isn't static. It's not just those hours that went down the drain. That alone would be bad enough because we only have, 4,000 weeks on this planet. We should, try and use that time as best as we can, ideally in the real world. But the real opportunity cost is exponentially worse because of the compound effect. When you invest your time in real life experiences, building skills, projects, etc., these build on each other and create exponential returns over time. For example, you might learn one skill which helps you perform better at work, which leads to promotions, which increases your income, which opens up more opportunities for you or your family. Real skills compound, gaming achievements reset. When you play games for years and spend hundreds or thousands of hours on them, you're basically back to square one anytime you switch over to the newest title or the next generation of console launches. Maybe you carried over like the keyboard and mouse skills, I guess, but beyond that, all of your progress essentially resets. But after a few years of investing the equivalent amount of time into your actual life, you could have advanced your career multiple levels, which would lead to permanent salary increases. You may have built deep relationships that led to your dream partner or family. You could have achieved your dream body and peak physical fitness, started a business or projects that now generate passive income, or developed expertise in a particular area that opened doors that now provide recurring benefits for you for the rest of your life. So when someone says that they've been gaming for 10 years, they're not just missing out on the 6,000 plus hours of their life. They're missing the exponential growth that those hours could have created. That's the hidden cost that most people never calculate. The skills you get from gaming. Let's dive a little deeper into the whole idea that you get all these transferable skills from gaming, better hand-eye coordination, strategic thinking, communication, things like that, because I really think it's very overblown and exaggerated what skills you actually develop from playing things like video games. You can see this comment on my previous video about how the skills you might gain from gaming pretty much only live in the gaming realm and are only relevant during the time when you're playing those games. You might become really good at beating just this one level in this one game or playing this one character. And even if there are some transferable skills, it makes no real difference given how much time it takes to develop those skills through gaming. So the truth is, if you want to develop valuable skills like strategic thinking, teamwork, problem-solving skills, then why not develop them in contexts that actually matter? So for example, if you wanted to develop strategic thinking, why not study, business strategy or marketing where real money is on the line? Or if you want better teamwork skills, why not join a sports team or just work on real projects with other people? Or if you want better problem solving skills, why not look at the problems that your company faces or that you just face in your life and figure out how to solve those? The skills you develop solving real problems with real stakes will dwarf anything that you learn optimizing your skills in the virtual world. And actually, this is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. All those hours I spent growing up grinding and leveling up in these games, I think part of me was craving something real that those games were just mimicking. There's this Japanese concept called ikigai, which basically means a reason for living. I've read a bit about this concept in the past, but recently I've been taking a class on Skillshare that goes into much more depth about how to find your ikigai, which is basically like the sweet spot between what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, and where those all intersect. So by discovering and pursuing your ikigai, you're figuring out your real world purpose and building skills that actually make a difference in your real life. It's a much more fulfilling and practical pursuit than grinding up the ranks on some random game where everything resets at the end of the season or when the newest round of games come out. What I love about Skillshare is that classes like this are taught by amazing world-class creatives, professional illustrators, renowned designers, successful entrepreneurs. You learn directly from real people who have actually made it work. And it's not just productivity or self-development classes that you can find on Skillshare. They've got classes in all sorts of categories like art and illustration, design, photography, business, basically all the real world skills that you could be developing instead of grinding on games. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. The transformation. Now, as enjoyable as it was to read all of the comments defending video games on that previous video, it was even more enjoyable to see people sharing their breakthrough moments because it reminded me of my own transformation. I'll read through a few of them here. As someone who plays often, I find it's impeded on parts of my life that it shouldn't. I've copped an attitude with my husband because I was playing too much, not wanting to go to group friend hangouts because I wanted to play games, putting off schooling, wasting time and money in the process, etc. I also dropped hobbies I used to love, like reading, just to make time for gaming. I'm trying to read more, or at least listen to more audiobooks, and transition to a more healthy, active lifestyle in which gaming isn't a priority. Brock said, as much as I disagree, I think this did somewhat motivate me to move on a little in my life and start doing more productive things. That is great to hear. Someone else said, I've just deleted 1 terabyte of video games. I had this realization yesterday, and today is the first day that I officially quit gaming forever. It's time I start living my life to the fullest. I know at first when I stopped gaming, everything felt kind of boring without that constant stimulation that I used to get. But as my dopamine baseline sort of reset, normal everyday activities started to become more engaging again. And more importantly, I started applying that same gaming energy, this obsession with improvement, leveling up, strategic thinking, this persistence to real world domains. So in the time that I used to spend gaming, I started building a business. I got promoted multiple times. I've doubled my income, improved my health and fitness, strengthened relationships, and developed a bunch of new skills that will continue to compound forever instead of achievements that reset with every season or new release. So if you've made it this far in the video and something's resonated, here's what I would suggest doing next. You've probably realized that, maybe gaming isn't the only aspect of your life where you're not really living up to your full potential. The question is, what other areas of your life could use that same honest evaluation? If you quit gaming and don't replace it with something meaningful, you'll probably just end up either reverting back to gaming or switching to something else like scrolling on your phone instead. I made another video that walks you through how to reset your life in 7 days following a step-by-step process. It's basically like a complete life audit where you analyze where you are now versus where you would like to be so you can find some real direction and make changes to your life that actually matter. Watch that video next and do something today that your future self would thank you for.